And there you have it. Bad sports. That's Cardboard Suits. Here on KRFF 95.9, RadioFreeFargo.org. That's what you're tapped into right now. We get wherever you are on this blue and green marble, we can get into your ear hole. We're streaming everywhere, RadioFreeFargo.org, or on your local dial, 95.9er. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. Every Thursday, I get in here 4 o'clock, 4:20, open a big fat bag of cannabis news. And this Thursday is no different. We're going to talk about the benefits of cannabis news in general. And this kind of show is kind of segueing into if there's an interesting drug story, I'll probably cover it. And we got this crazy story today about, and I don't have the country in my head because I'd have to look at the article. But basically, this is a thing that happens in this country where they force their horses to smoke joints to make them keep moving. And that's twisted. And I ain't about that life. But we'll talk about it at 4:20. Minnesota, let's see. Do I have anything to talk about? South Dakota, I do. Minnesota, I'm sure there's something I can talk about, but I'm not so sure. I believe God created cannabis for us to use as we see fit, and I show him props every Sunday. Antioch Church, 10 a.m., we do a recovery class. So if you're looking for a little nudge towards the sobriety section in your life, we can help you. 11 a.m., worship. I'm not on stick duty, so you could probably sit by me. Oh, never mind. I'm going to be in Dickinson. But if you're thinking about getting to the Lord's house, go anyway. You know, you'll be glad you did. This show is brought to you by Black Cottage Alchemy. Black Cottage Alchemy on Facebook. Black Cottage Alchemy does a body butter, 1,200 mgs of CBD in it. Con-free, ylang-ylang, coconut oil, colloidal silver, the stuff you want on your body. Thank you, Black Cottage Alchemy, for sponsoring this show. Well, what do we have here? We have this to tell you. I'm paging through stuff because I'm not organized. That's what happens to ADD people. They're not organized. They may leave their wallet at home. But I'll tell you this, you're listening to Radio Free Fargo, 95.9 KRFF LP Community Radio. Are you a business owner? You a manager, nonprofit organization leader, considering advertising? Why not learn what underwriting is on a nonprofit community radio station instead? To learn more about what underwriting is, please contact us at our website, www.radiofreefargo.org, or at our profile on Facebook. Why not let listeners know that you support the community by supporting a community radio station? Which brings me to, before me in the morning, is Country with Trav. I believe it's 9 to 11. Then you've got Automation AI Robot Fred, spelled with a P, spinning the tunes that he selects. Then you got me, Canna-Talk ND with Wilson, 4 o'clock, aforementioned Thursdays. 4:20, we open a big fat bag of cannabis news. After me, Stinky Arts Music Mart, when that's happening. There's a mixtape thing happening today, too. And then, to wrap up your evening, we have Artemis Shrine. Man, that's just fun to say. And I don't even know if that's shared, if the sentiment's shared, because that is just pretty fun. Pretty fun to do. But again, you're listening to Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. I'm Wilson. The sun's shining. It's a beautiful day today. Yesterday was kind of a soupy, poopy mess if you're from Fargo and or Moorhead. But again, I celebrate my 2 years sobriety. August 27th is the last day I used anything bad. Anything bad. And I always remember that last day because I was such a huge kratom user at that point. And man, I mean, I was just using so much that, you know, like, we can argue if it's safe or not, you know, but I can assure you if you're taking way more than you're supposed to, like me, the withdrawals were gnarly. They really were. They were similar to an opiate withdrawal, I would say. I mean, it was, and then the mental anguish was stupid. It was stupid, y'all. But anyway, that's behind me. And 2 years, and I also passed a kidney stone without any narcotics as a result. So I was pretty proud of that. I'm an idiot, you know. But again, like I said, if past me would have known future me was going to have to pass a kidney stone without any analgesics, I probably would have thought about doing all the drugs. I mean, I probably still would have done them, of course, but maybe I would have thought about it. But anyway, let's get us into some tunes, and then we'll come back and I'll talk about some stuff. This is Arthur Baker, Lowrider Remix, coming at you from 1987, 95.9. You're welcome. Lowrider Remix, Arthur Baker, 95.9, RadioFreeFargo.org. You're listening to me, Canna-Talk ND, with Wilson. And that's a good point I'm going to bring up right before I read this underwriter. I got some mail at my local home address, right? And it was to Canna-Talk ND. And it was a credit card application, right? Well, how do they know I live there? That I am Canna-Talk ND? That's not my name. They call me Stacy. That's not my name, right? So how do they know that Canna-Talk ND is me at my home? And how did I create credit? Or how do they even know me? I mean, how did they even know to do that? Isn't that crazy? Programming on KRFF, LPFM, Radio Free Fargo, 95.9 FM is being underwritten by Flatland Guitar and Lutherie. Flatland Guitar is your full-service guitar shop and your exclusive dealer for Yamaha, Taylor, Paul Reed Smith guitars, and other brands. They sell guitars on consignment. They take trade-ins and have a full-service on-site repair center. Check out Flatland Guitar and Lutherie on Facebook or visit them in person at 1450 25th Street South in Fargo. Their hours are Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. Saturdays, 10 to 5, closed on the Lord's Day. So we're going to cover this. But quickly, I'm going to mention this for fun, and then I'll talk about it again at 4:20. But this is from Fox 9 KMSP. Minnesota's cannabis tax revenue surpasses. Now, are you ready for this? First of all, let me preface this. Everybody knows that Minnesota was the 23rd state to legalize cannabis, correct? Okay, but the stores, ain't going to be no stores except for the native lands. Okay, that's selling, that has dispensaries. There's a few of them available. All right, but it's in just certain locations. You got to go there. I was blown away by how much tax revenue just from them are. First retailers will be on tribal land. They say it could be the fall of 25 before there's even stores. So how in the world did they have $500,000 in tax revenue in 1 month? Isn't that crazy? Since legalizing cannabis use among adults over the age of 21, Minnesota has already collected nearly $600,000 in tax revenue from sales in first month. Located on tribal lands, currently only Red Lake and White Earth Nation have the only legal dispensaries to sell cannabis flower and edibles that contain more than 10 mg of THC per serving in them. On its first day of sales, Native Care saw long lines and has since expanded hours and are establishing a mobile dispensary. Currently, adults can possess and travel within Minnesota borders with 2 ounces of Flowey, 8 grams of the waxy poo, and 900 milligrams of brownies, or such. Meanwhile, they can have 2 pounds of flour at home. However, cannabis products purchased on an Indian reservation is exempt from a specific tax. So, where in the world... So as a part of the new law, 20% of revenue from gross receipts tax will go to a newly established government cannabis thing. But where in the world, is that all from the reservation, or are they counting flower and edibles that have 10 mg of THC in it? I don't know. But this was an article I thought was interesting. It's from Cannabis Now, and it says, why does cannabis still cost so much? And that's a good question. The $40 benchmark price for a bag of grass in the U.S. is hurting the cannabis industry, even as oversupply and overregulation eliminate any margins. If you've purchased cannabis in the U.S. anytime over the past several months, years, or even decades, you've noticed that while specials come and go, the rough price of an eighth is around $40. In some states, it can get to $50, and if you suck, it could be $60. But everything still seems pegged towards expecting to withdraw a few Andrew Jacksons whenever it's time to pick up a Sizak. It's been this way for a long time. Walter Wood, a Trinity County, California grower, he said, we used to pay $60 in the mid to early 90s, but that's about right. For some reason, the $40 threshold is a concrete benchmark resistant even to inflation. Pricing has as much to do with psychology and conditioning as it does market forces. But the remarkable stability of retail cannabis prices begs a question. So, If a $4,800 pound was cut into 60/8 and an 800 pound is cut into 30/8, where's the rest of the money going? So there's distribution costs, state cultivation tax, there's state excise tax, there's a retail markup about 35%. Flour, farmer share 6%, testing, packaging, and whatever is another 6%. Crazy, right? But anyway, we're going to talk about it more 420 when we open a big fat bag of cannabis news. But now I got a brand new tune from the Motet. This is Natural Light. You're welcome. 95.9. That, my friends, was Natural Light by the Motet. Brand new here on KRFF 95.9. RadioFreeFargo.org. It's about that time. We're right up on 420 here. I'm going to go ahead and do this. And if you've been listening to this show, you know what that means. On the other side of this, we're going to open a big fat bag of cannabis news.
Hey, it's Phil from Canna-Heads. Like this episode? Hit that like button. And if you enjoy the show, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on cannabis news, local and national. Listen live on 95.9 in the Fargo, North Dakota region from 4 to 5 p.m. on Thursday. For our non-Fargo region friends, you can listen on your favorite podcast platform. Just search Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. Now enjoy the show.
Welcome. Hello, everybody. How we all doing? Everybody good? We got the sun on our face. We got the wind on our backs. We know not to pee into the wind. I see you don't know, sir, but when you pee into the wind, it gets on you. You're welcome. Anyway, let's talk about cannabis, the benefits of cannabis. We're going to talk about this in case y'all weren't around 4 minutes ago. It's from Fox 9. Minnesota's cannabis tax revenue surpasses almost $600,000 in first months of sales. No dispensaries, but a couple of them on tribal land. Now, they did legalize up to 10 MIGs of stuff and things that you can buy, I guess, anywhere. So they must be including that, right? But you wouldn't say in the first month of sales if you were talking about something that's got, a year's worth of sales already. So that is nuts, isn't it? I mean, that is so much. And props to the tribal land because they're making cash. I mean, they're well on their way to dependence or independence. And that's great. And that is fantastic. If it was up to me, I'd let the natives sell all the cannabis. Just drive there, But anyway, Minnesota's cannabis tax revenue surpasses $500,000 in first month of sales. And I just don't get it. I don't get it. Now, I will tell you this. Stinking. Well, let's talk about this first. This is Cannabis Moment. More than 11,500 people. 11,500 people have medical cannabis cards in South Dakota, double what the state expected. Of course, state, what do they expect? They don't know what they're talking about. I mean, if they knew what to expect, their things would be a whole lot different in every state. Am I right? But anyway, that's well ahead of projections. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry, folks. Maybe I'm allergic to eggs. But anyway, originally the state had anticipated 6,000 cardholders by 2024, and so they're wrong. We've doubled the amount that we were projecting to see in 3 years within 2 years. She added that the most common reasons or conditions South Dakotans cite when seeking cannabis cards include cancer, pain, seizures, MS, and severe muscle spasms. So let's just think about that. They're seeking them for cancer. Well, doesn't the pharmaceutical company have that on lock? No. Chronic pain. Can't they just get some opiates? Yeah, if they want to get constipated and have an addiction. Seizures. Isn't there meds for that? Yeah, but it'll cause you problems. Muscle relaxers. Won't those work for muscle spasms? Sure, but it's synthetic. It's not natural. Cannabis comes out of the ground. Dare I say, from God himself, who also put fruit and stuff coming out of the ground. Seed. Seed is an integral part in the Bible. It's all about seeds. Plant the seeds. Multiply your seeds. Whatever. She added, again, so new cards made up the bulk of the revenue, which is weird, $1.37 million. Apparently, pop-up clinics are one main way South Dakotans are accessing medical cards. That representative weirdo who grabbed a card, he said the appointment lacked an examination to determine if he needed a card. And Dooch, which sounds a lot like douche, which might be this guy's M.O., but rather a nurse practitioner he had met previously. He seems to think there should be a bunch of examination. I mean, I don't think you do. Because you're in there for something you're already taking meds for, right? Like, I got cancer. I'm taking this crap. I want to try this. Well, what examination would you need? You already got the issues, right? So ideas include preventing people invested in the industry from running pop-up clinics. Apparently, douche, he set a fee for a card of $75, but a pop-up clinic can charge a larger sum. Ducci said he paid about $170 for his appointment. Currently, there's no cap on the number of cards a provider can issue. That's no big deal. The change would remove any monetary incentive to operate pop-up clinics. I don't know. You really just have good medicine after that if they're doing it because they believe in patients and trying to make them healthy, and not necessarily because of a huge check at the end of the day when they fly home. I suppose we could argue huge checks, The committee also discussed other issues. This is interesting, including parolees and currently being allowed to use cannabis medically when other drugs such as alcohol is off limits. See, and that's the thing. We're getting all wrapped up in this drug stuff. Medicine, drugs, alcohol. I mean, show a medical benefit to drugs or alcohol outside of you just gotten shot with a bullet and you're out in the field and you need to take a shot of whiskey to numb the pain. I feel you, bruh. But otherwise, alcohol's dangerous. And that's just it. So anyway, in recap, about 12,000 people got medical cards in South Dakota. Shout out them. Now, I'm telling you, stinking Singapore has got issues. And I got another article about stinking Singapore. And I hate to do it, but I'm trying to shed light. I'm trying to shed light. The more you know. 47 out of the 50 people who are currently on death row in Singapore were convicted of drug trafficking offenses. Singapore plans to execute another 50 people this year. And again, they're not just executing them. They're hanging them. They're long drop hanging them. They're letting them zing down and snap their necks. Sometimes their heads come completely off. They give them glamour shots. They dress them up and take pictures for the family. They give them money for them to buy little fun things for their cellmates, which they've interviewed the cellmates and they think it's the worst thing ever. They don't want to take the money. They don't want to take the gifts. They know what you're doing. They know what it is. It's horrible. So, like many neighboring Southeast Asian countries, Singapore imposes the DP, that's death penalty. Get your minds out of the gutter. I know what you guys thought. On people who are convicted of trafficking, even relatively small quantities of drugs. The wealthy city-state temporarily halted executions during COVID, but they are rocking and rolling now. The country's hanged 16 people since last March. Activists suggest that they are now working overtime to clear a backlog of death row inmates. There are currently 50 people on death row in Singapore, and 47 of them are sentenced to die for drug crimes. Doesn't look like the Singapore government has any intention of halting executions. The sense that we've got from prisoners and families is that the authorities would like to clear the backlog and make space on death row for new people. So, anyone who's convicted of trafficking at least 15 grams of H, 30 grams of cocaine, 250 grams of meth, or 500 grams of weed can be sentenced to death by hanging. Although the law seems to be targeted at massive trafficking organizations, most of those who have received the DP were caught with fairly small quantities of drugs. Several people who were hanged this month, including the first woman that Singapore has executed 20 years, was caught with just a couple ounces of heroin. In the 13 years I've been an anti-death penalty activist, I've never come across a case where the guy was a kingpin. These aren't the big guys who are profiting handsomely from transnational illicit drug trade. They're just lower rungs, low-hanging fruit. Some are or were themselves longtime drug users and did not receive adequate support to recover. And criminal justice advocates believe that some people who have recently been executed weren't even guilty, like this Tangiru Supia. Apparently, he had 2.6 pounds of weed into the country, and they argue he did not receive a fair trial. Leading human rights group Amnesty and Branson, they all freak out about this stuff, but it's still happening. So they claim, and this is that whole, like back in the day, I remember my parents, they'd tell me stuff like, oh, you think being grounded is hard? You think getting spanked is bad? If you were in Singapore, we'd cut your hand off for lying, son. I mean, when you put it into perspective, it's like, well, maybe I will hang out in my room for today and tomorrow. At least I don't get my foot cut off for kicking somebody's butt. Cannabis moment. Let's dispel the myth that cannabis and tobacco smoke are equally hazardous to health. All right, well, let's take a look at this, shall we? Okay. A growing percentage of Americans perceive smoking cannabis to be less dangerous than smoking ciggies. They're correct, but you wouldn't know it from reading the recent slew of media headlines. Many Americans wrongly believe exposure to cannabis smoke is safer than tobacco, screams CNN. People underestimate the health risk of smoking cannabis. The World Report similarly lamented more Americans than ever believe cannabis smoke is safer than cigarette smoke. They're wrong. In fact, it's the news media that's in error. Numerous studies assessing the long-term health impacts of cannabis smoke belie the myth that cannabis is associated with the same sort of well-established adverse respiratory hazards as tobacco. For example, federally funded research performed by scientists, and they looked at 2,000 long-term cannabis smokers, tobacco smokers, and non-smokers. Investigators determined that those who regularly smoked cigarettes possessed a 20-fold higher lung cancer risk than did non-smokers. Now check this out. By contrast, those who only smoke cannabis possess no such elevated risk as the cigarette smokers. We hypothesized that there would be a positive association between cannabis smoke and lung cancer, and that the association would be more positive with heavier use. What we found instead was no association at all. And even, now let's all brace for this, and even a suggestion of some protective effect. Let's start over. The study's lead author explained, what we found instead was no association to heavier use and toxicity in the lungs, and even a suggestion of some protective effect. Y'all. Another longitudinal study, Colorado, assessed the relationship between lifetime use and respiratory function in a cohort of 2,300 subs, 40 to 80. Current and former smokers had significantly higher forced expiratory volume when compared to never users. So stronger. Our lungs were stronger. Their lungs. Somebody's lungs. Both current and former cannabis use was associated with significantly less quantitative emphysema when compared to never users. In agreement with other published studies, we also did not find that cannabis use was associated with more obstructive lung disease. So, other studies indicate that cannabis smoke and tobacco smoke are not equally carcinogenic. All right? The data on cannabis contrasts starkly with the consistent demonstration of injury from tobacco. Any possible toxicity of cannabis pales in comparison. So there you go. In short, it is misleading at best and disingenuous at worst to imply that cannabis smoke exposure is either equal to or more hazardous to health than tobacco smoking, or to imply that long-term data on its effects do not exist. They do, and the findings of these studies are clear and consistent. The risks associated with cannabis smoke and tobacco smoke are far from equal, and the public should not be chastised for rightfully acknowledging their differences. You're listening to Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. Every Thursday I get in here. We are well into our 420 cannabis bag of news. It's open. This is from the Baltimore Banner. Baltimore, under new law, states can't take kids away solely for parental cannabis use. Advocates say it's a step in the right direction. I'm going to read it again. This is from the Baltimore Planner. Under new law, state can't take your kids away for smoking the grass. 9% of all newborns exposed to a substance were removed from their parents in 2020 compared to 6% in 2022. A single mother of 6, Mrs. B, worked hard to change the circumstances that cost her custody of her children. Her kids desperately wanted to return home. 3 of the children were being cared for by their father, while the oldest 3 were in foster care. The case stalled for years, long after Miss B was deemed fit to regain custody. And isn't that crazy? What kept her file open was a past positive cannabis test, even though she was going through substance abuse treatment. In the meantime, 2 of her kids declined rapidly, as do many children of color when separated from their parents. The bill Calfani and other advocates were pushing for would have prevented the harm and damages Mrs. B endured. The Maryland legislation signed by Governor Wes Moore earlier this year went into effect the day cannabis became legal for rec use in July. Family law and cannabis activists are still pushing through a legal war and a cultural war. The state considers parental substance use an indication of child maltreatment, but only removes a child if there's immediate danger or if being in the home is a threat to the safety and welfare of the child. The number of removals has declined in recent years, and so that's good. So, some family law attorneys and activists have long pushed back against the child welfare system removing children from their homes, which they say is a form of family policing. Such activism dates back to the war on drugs. And again, if we're talking crack here, crack is whack. Everybody knows that. Pennsylvania vape shop sues county after hemp-derived cannabis products seized without a warrant. They're suing the DA and other LEOs, claiming they searched the business without a warrant and seized hemp-derived THC products. The lawsuit alleges that Adams ordered the Lancaster County Drug Task Force to carry out raids on smoke shops and vape shops, and that 4 members and produced a memo, not a search warrant, would be seizing all products containing Delta 8 or Delta 10. Employees claim the officers gave them the option to either surrender to the search and seizure or have the shop shut down. They took tens of thousands of dollars worth of merchandise and a huge loss for the business owner. Lawsuit seeking compensatory and punitive damages. Enforcement action was announced, and they seized nearly $300,000 worth of product from 25 stores. And let me just riddle you this. When I go to my grocery store downtown here, all right, there is a smoke shop by it. Now, there's always illuminated signs in the windows, hookahs, 1Es, Delta 8, Delta 9s, Kratom, whatever they're promoting, right, that they're selling. And they always had a Delta 8 blinky in their window. And I was waiting at that red light on 10th Street, and I just happened to look over, and I noticed that Delta 8 blinky light was no longer in the window. Now, I know August 1st, as we had a guest call in a couple weeks ago, regarding this upgrade in intensity when it came to removing those 8s and HHCs and the THCAs and all that other stuff. So, I wonder if that isn't full on happening, But anyway, let's see what else we got here. We got a lot going on. This from Cannabis Moment. GOP congressman pushes DEA head for update on Biden's cannabis scheduling review. So he's asking for a copy of letters. He's requested that the process commence, but so he's provided a copy of the letter you referenced. Have you asked HHC for its timeline? What's the response? What's the timeline? Let's go. So we'll see how that goes. What do we got here? Another New Jersey police officer fired over cannabis must be reinstated. So that's awesome. And that's all setting precedent, So like if you were a copper and it happens in Minnesota, you get to go, well, the Jersey City versus so-and-so. You got to reinstate my stuff. And so then there's precedent set. So that's really good news. So yeah. So, but as far as the state is concerned, the law is not ambiguous. And New Jersey attorney has made it clear that officers can consume off hours for law enforcement earlier this year. So that's cool. All right. So now what do we got here? Oh, Cannabis Moment. Patients say cannabis treats neuropathy just as well as opiates. And most report using high THC cannabis. I feel like I got some nerve issues myself. I've always had some sort of issues, and it will saturate. It's neuroprotective, and it works pretty good. So the average pain level before cannabis use was a 7.6. Average pain level after cannabis use was a 3.4. So that is crazy. So a 2017 randomized trial, for example, found that neuropathy patients rated the pain-relieving effects of oxycodone and acetaminophen, basically Vicodin, are 4.4. Ibuprofen, 4.3. Codeine, 3.9. And hydrocodone are 3.5. Cannabis at a 3.4. And yet, it's demonized. You could go to jail. They talk bad about you. You could lose your job, lose your kids, but not in Baltimore. Shout out Baltimore. So let me read that again. Patients say cannabis treats neuropathy just as well as opiates. And they're using the strong stuff. So, we got a crazy story now. Are you ready? This is from the Statesman. Owner forces horse to smoke cannabis while returning from Kedarnath. Booked. So they got him. They found him. Okay. So now check this out, though. There's a Kedarnath Shrine trek route. And apparently, and I don't even know where it is. I don't even know if it's in the Himalayas, I guess. It's in the Himalayas. And there's a pilgrimage site. All right? So, the cruelties meted out to horses and mules used for transportation of pilgrims of this famous Hindu shrine. And apparently, they'll get tired and whatever. And so, it was found that on June 21st, while returning for Kedarnath, Rakesh Singh forced his horse to smoke with the help of another accomplice. They held him down, stuck it up his nose. It was horrible. Someone shot the video of their act in which both are holding the mouth of the horse and forcing the animal to inhale a lit cigarette through one of its nostrils. The video went viral, eliciting public outcry about cruelty. So, it was believed that the horse owners, in a mad race to earn money during the Char Dham Yatra, forced the animals to smoke cannabis and intoxicate them to work extra. Already 115 horses and mules have died during this Char Dham Yatra, which started on April 22nd this year. Started in mid-May. It's a 90-kilometer trek route. Around 300 animals have died during the Yatra in 2022. The animal rights activists charged that more than 25,000 horses and mules are deployed, tortured, and overworked to earn the owners without caring for the well-being. That's crazy. A total of 212 horse and mule orders were challenged and cases of animal cruelty registered. This is nuts. All right, so Kedarnath, get your life together and stop messing with these horses. Hulk Hogan, he's 70. He swaps opioids and alcohol for CBD. He's done with painkillers and alcohol. He's doing the CBD. Hogan underwent 25 surgeries because he's a wrestler. He's getting loaded up on opioids. He said he continued taking the opioids long after the physical pain was gone. And I've heard that before, right? Now at age 70, he revealed that a combination of opioids and boozy booze spelled a decades-long relationship with addiction. Going sober meant dropping vices that felt destructive. I've had a lot of practice drinking because I wrestled for about 40 years, and those guys have a beer every once in a while. He decided at a New Year's Eve party, he's done. It was then he realized there was a negative thing he didn't want, being around people who believed and behaved differently than he did. Sober meant losing some friends and gaining others. Some consider the 1980s as the glory days. Opioids proved to be equally devastating, creating another dilemma. I had doctors write me prescription after prescription, and it became a vicious cycle. He was hitting the pain pills hard because he had to endure 25 procedures. La-di-da-di-do. So, Ric Flair, Mike Tyson, they introduced him to CBD. So, he says CBD can help lower cravings for tobacco and heroin under certain conditions. He was confused. He'd never used it. He didn't understand the health aspects, what it could do for you as far as energy, sleeping, blah, 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 blah. We found CBD is a logical alternative. He's focusing on helping people with their health. CBD is amazing for sleep and can also overcome alcohol abuse. Apparently, he's got his own brand. It's coming out soon. Now, this is some homework. I'm not going to get through all this. This is from High Times. Son of infamous Jimmy Chagra arrested in Texas on drug charges. Now, this made-for-TV father-son story even includes Woody Harrelson. All right? So, this guy was pushing fentanyl, and he got busted. All right? And so where does Harrelson come in? I'm going to show you. Where is it? So, the OG Chagra was arrested on trafficking charges in 1979. He'd appear before John Wood, nicknamed Maximum John, for obvious reasons. And so, Chagra faced a possible life sentence. He attempted to bribe Maximum John. It didn't work, so he arranged to have him assassinated by guess who? Of all people, hitman, Charles Harrelson, who in this ongoing story is dad to Woody. Crazy, right? So this OG Chagra hired Woody's dad to kill Maximum John. And I'll leave you with that, but go ahead, check that article out yourself. It's pretty stinking good, I'd say. But anyway, you've listened to another rabble-rousing segment of Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. It's brought to you by Drummer's Journey Underwriting. Programming on 95.9 Radio Free Fargo KRFF LP is being underwritten by Drummer's Journey. Drummer's Journey offers percussion instruments, hardware, electronics, accessories, and more. They have full service for drummers, including repair, custom building, and lessons. Drummer's Journey is located at Highway 10 East Mall, Moorhead. Their hours are Monday through Thursday, 11 to 7. Fridays and Saturdays, 11 to 5. Sundays, noon to 5. For more info, check drummersjourney.com. They have a profile on the Facebook. And now it's Toonie Tune time. I got some more brand new stuff. This is reggae. This is Cool as the Breeze by Stephen Marley. Yeah, Cool as the Breeze. Stephen Marley. That's kind of a chill palate cleanser, isn't it? KRFF 95.9, RadioFreeFargo.org. We're streaming everywhere in the blue and green marble. You out, we can get into your ear hole. After me, let me start over. After me, Sinky Arts Music Mart, I think. Mixtape after that. Then we have Artemis Shrine. Wraps up your Thursday. Don't forget the other days. There's always stuff going on here. I just want to mention tonight we've got a benefit. So support us, would you? KRFF 95.9 presents Nox Navacula. It's a play on Dracula at the Aquarium with Zero Place and Germ Circus. All ages. Benefit show for Radio Free Fargo. That's us. Thursday, 24th. That's today. 6:30 at the Aquarium, downtown Fargo. For more info, www.aquariumfargo.com. Again, KRFF 95.9, that's us. Presents Nox Navacula, whatever, at the Aquarium. Zero Place, Germ Circus. Come get you some. This show is brought to you by Black Cottage Alchemy. Black Cottage Alchemy on Facebook. 1,200 mgs of CBD goes into the butter that's good for your whole body. It's good. Thank you, Black Cottage Alchemy, for sponsoring this show. I believe God created cannabis for us to use as we see fit, and I worship him every Sunday at Antioch Church. It's a Pentecostal church. 10 a.m. recovery class. 11 a.m. worship. I'll be in Dickinson this Sunday. So, again, I'm celebrating. We're going to go to Medora, me and the kid and the dogs, maybe. I'll be celebrating my sobriety anniversary for 2 years, August 27th. As well as my birthday, as my daughter's 26th birthday. Isn't that crazy? I'm pushing 50. Don't tell anybody. But anyway, I think I'm going to jump out this place. Educate yourselves on the benefits of cannabis so you can educate others on said benefits. I'll be back in next Thursday, and then the Thursday after that, I'll be in Pigeon Forge with Dolly Parton, my new girlfriend. Just kidding, but I will be in Pigeon Forge with my folks doing missionary poncho wearing. That's right, I got a fancy poncho to represent Ecuador with my folks at this convention. So anyhow, and I'm hoping the Delta 8 debacle hasn't affected Tennessee, but I think it's affecting everybody. But again, I'm out of here. I'll be back next Thursday. Stick around for the stuff that's happening after me, and I'll see you later. David Allen, Judgment Day. Peace.